All right, part two for objective one, the heart within the thoracic cavity. So we want to describe where the heart is actually located. We're going to list the structural components of the pericardium and then describe the function of the pericardium and the purpose of the serous fluid within the pericardial cavity. All right, so the heart is enclosed in a sac that we call the pericardium, and it's going to sit posterior to the sternum, right? So behind it and just to the left of our midline. It's between the lungs in what we call the mediastinum. So it's slightly rotated. You'll notice that the heart actually does this thing where we see more of the right side than we do the left side. So we're going to see more of this right side here and less of that left side. So that would be the left and here's the right side, right? So the base is the posterior-superior surface and the apex is going to be this portion right here, the inferior conical end. So we're going to call this our base and we're going to call this our apex. So that's kind of what we see here, right? We've got the right atrium right here, and then our right ventricle all the way over here. And we notice the left ventricle is just this little tiny piece here, and the left atrium just that really small piece here. Of course, then it's situated in between our lungs, also again slightly to the left that we can see there. And we call this whole space right here the mediastinum. So the pericardium is actually 3 layers of fibrous sac that's found around the heart. And so this fibrous pericardium is the outermost covering, right? Peri just means around, and it's made of dense, irregular connective tissue. It attaches specifically to the diaphragm and the base of the aorta and the pulmonary trunk. It's going to go ahead and anchor the heart and prevent it from overfilling. So the parietal layer of the serous pericardium, that's going to be made of simple squamous epithelial tissue and areolar connective tissue, and it attaches to the fibrous pericardium. So the next layer that we find is going to be the visceral layer of the serous pericardium. This is also simple squamous epithelial tissue and areolar connective tissue, and it is attaching directly to the heart. So notice this is the most outer layer up here, and then we're going to go all the way to the most inner layer next to the heart. So we have 2 serosal layers that are continuous and separated by the pericardial cavity, right? So the pericardium is actually on top there, and then we have another one that is separated by this cavity there. So we can see that right here, this pericardial cavity is going to have serous fluid, and then we have this visceral layer of the serous epicardium, and then the fibrous and parietal layer of the serous pericardium. So that cavity that we see right along here is actually super important for taking care of the heart. And then, of course, we can see where the heart is connected to the diaphragm. Kind of crazy to think about how far it actually comes up into our thoracic cavity, right? Or just butting up against the thoracic cavity there. So one of the things to note is that you can have an inflammation of the pericardium. This is going to be called pericarditis. It's caused by viruses, bacteria, or fungi, and it actually increases our capillary permeability. So that means that we're going to have a fluid accumulation in the pericardial cavity. So this real space is going to fill up with fluid, and it's going to restrict the heart's movement and keep your chambers from filling. So this can result in cardiac tamponade, which makes it so the heart can't actually pump. Another piece of this is going to be the friction rub. It's going to cause a crackling sound over the stethoscope as the pericardial layers are going to rub against each other. Kind of crazy and creepy. So the mediastinum, right, that's just the space occupied by the heart. And then where around the heart is the serous fluid located? So it's in between that visceral pericardium and the parietal and fibrous pericardium that we find. So it's going to be right in between there.